Are you concerned about all this corruption being rebranded as conspiracy theory? Well, don't you worry. Sit back and relax and join in the conversation with today's guest. Welcome to another LSB Film Productions podcast with your host, Chris Brooks.
Hello and welcome to the channel. It's me, Chris Brooks, for another LSB Film podcast. I hope everyone's keeping well today. So, for many of you who have recently joined us, you may not be aware of Hornsey Wood Academy. I met these guys, well, I haven't met them probably for just over a year now. We did one podcast and it was really successful, and it was about time that we had these guys back on again to introduce them to you. So, without further ado, welcome Alex and Carl.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm very well.
Good. Nice to be back on again. You're sounding well as well.
Thank you. It's probably the microphone, to be fair.
Yeah.
But no, just to explain to people, obviously, because of the work that you do, it's good that you are anonymous to a certain degree. And so I thought, bugger it, we'll have this as an audio-only podcast. So anyone who is tuning in to see my ugly face, I do apologise. It's just audio. So yeah, thank you very much for joining me, because I know you're both really busy. Just for a quick introduction of yourselves and what you do, let's start from the beginning. How did this all begin? How did you get into what you do?
Alex, you want to go?
I can talk for my side of the journey. I'll just basically talk you up to where I bumped into Carl, so to speak. So obviously there was a lot went on in 2020. I ended up in a washing machine of medical and science and stuff for about 2.5 years, going round and round and round. And at the end, I found I had a lot of knowledge, but didn't really know how to apply it. One of my good friends came back from a gathering, shall we say, and he passed me a link. And that was when I first heard Carl's voice talking on Hornsey Wood Academy. And I made a decision there. That was about nearly 3 years ago now, that I was going to pick up this method, shall we call it, and follow it right to the end, because it seemed to make complete sense and sort of tied everything that I sort of had as information. It sort of brought it all together into one place and just made perfect sense. So obviously met Carl, got involved with the talks, and here we are 3 years later.
That's really good. How did you come across Hornsey Wood Academy then? Because I imagine it's not something that you just
stumbled on. There was so back over the last few years, there was something called Alpha Males Assemble, or something like that, some group of men that were getting together because they weren't happy with how the world was looking and the government and all this. Now, I didn't go to it, but as I say, one of my friends did, and somebody there passed it to him, and then he came back and said, look, Alex, I think you're going to like this. And he's right. I did like it, and it was very palatable. I mean, Carl put things across really. Obviously, he's been into this a very, very long time, and the way he put it across was just very easy for me to understand. So for me, it's not always the message that people are giving, it's about how they're giving it. And yeah, I just found that the way Carl did it was easy for me to absorb it and take it on board, and it really helped me kind of place, like, there's this kind of world going on between law and legal, and they kind of liken it to ships on the sea and things. Just the whole way that Carl put it together, because of decades of experience in this, just resonated with me. So that was that really, and I started following Carl and all the other people that are in the group from that point forward, really. And obviously brought him to you because I thought it was phenomenal. You know, it needs to be out there, and this is what we do. We just let people know. We don't advise people. We just kind of say, look, this is what we're seeing. We try and keep it really factual, based on facts, often referencing the law dictionaries of the people that put all of this together. And we just try and keep it factual rather than emotional and based on hearsay.
Then let's move over to Carl. How did you get into all this?
Well, I mean, like, as Alex said, I mean, I've been studying this for about 30 years. So, and I started off with like Dean Clifford, Anthony J. Hilda, Jordan Maxwell, listening to them, and they're opening out of the world basically and what was going on behind closed doors. So, but a lot of the things that I was coming up against, it was all for like America, Canada, Australia, and them kind of countries, but there was nothing here for UK. So I had to, for like 20 years, I've been listening to them and just digging deep. Then for the last 10 years, I said, right, I've got to kind of like take the information I've learned and then convert that to over here and find the documents over here, what they was using, because it's a completely different jurisdiction, as we know. So, and from there on, it was just like research. And then I thought, well, I bought my name as a limited company back in 2015, because I was studying the David Wimiller technique, just a technique, and then I gave that over to Mark Kishon Christopher to do that. But then I moved away from it because I thought there was more to it. There was more to it, which we're not really knowing about. So, yeah. And now basically I thought, well, I've got enough information. I wasn't going to say anything. But then 2019, someone called me and said to me, what did you do? Because I've heard something that you did. And I said, well, I just bought a limited company. And that's when I started talking and met up with groups of people face to face in a little group. So, and then it's just gone on from there, really, and just built a little YouTube channel, started putting up the Zoom meetings way back from then, 2022. I think 2021 and 2022 were the main recordings I've got up from early, probably a year before as well. Yeah. But yeah, other than that, and we're here today now. So, and again, as Alex says, I'm more of a factual based person. So I'll go into the Black's Law Dictionary, Aylesbury's, Bouvier's, Ballantyne's, and all the different legal dictionaries just to check out the different wording, because their language is completely different from the English language, as you know now. So if we look at the Oxford Dictionary of definition of words, and then we went and looked at Aylesbury or Blackstone's or Black's Law, they've got completely different definitions for these words. But what they're not telling the public is that they're using this language called legalese to deceive us with. So they're using our own English language to deceive us with, but we're not seeing that. That's the thing about it. So I thought I need to get this message out and then tell people what I've actually done and what it's actually done for me. And now people have started doing it. They're starting to realize what it's actually doing for them as well. So they're getting more and more involved with it. And it's been a long journey, as Alex just said, and even yourself, Chris, you know it's a long journey. So hopefully we can move forward, and we can move forward, but we can break down barriers, because now even the Royal Courts of Justice are running away from us. That's the thing about it, because they're being fraudulent in their documents as well, which brings us to this ID thing, what you wanted to talk about. But I don't want to go there just yet. I'll let you introduce that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's just basically a little rundown of me, really.
Brilliant, thank you. So what would you say to the people listening then? What are the key benefits of owning your name as a dormant limited company? What can people benefit from doing that?
Alex, you want to?
Well, sorry, what was the exact question?
What do you benefit from it, Alex?
Well, it again goes back to the facts for me. I mean, you're saying about the name and things like that. So it really just goes down to drilling and into an understanding what it is that they have attached to us. For me. So we look, and we're not the name, and we always say this, look, you're not your name. The name is something that was given to you. You didn't even choose it. They gave it to you when you were born. So for me, it just helped me to understand the difference between a Christian name, a surname, a legal name, and what these things all actually mean to the people that have put these in place. And it's a very empowering process. You start it off thinking, I can cut all contracts here quite easily because they can't have a contract with a dormant limited company. Plus I'm trademarked, so they can't use that to engage with me in commerce to make money for their company. So you kind of protect yourself. That's the way you start off. But as the journey continues, for me, it's very much a journey of separation of yourself, the soul in the vessel, which is the body, and the name that they've attached to you. And for me, that's the biggest win, when you start to understand that you're not this legal name that they've given us, and actually it's something completely different. And when we go back on it all, the reason for capitalization is that they have turned you into the name into an implied corporation. And you see this quite a lot as you start going through the legal documents and the lawful language, that we see a lot of implied and expressed. It's used quite a lot in law and in legal, implied and expressed. And we're taking the name from an implied status where it has Mr. in front of it, but it's still all capitalized like a corporation would be, and we're expressing it. So once the name's expressed and you understand what you've done there, you start to understand actually you've removed yourself from this name, you've detached yourself. And that really, so I don't want to digress too much, but that was, for me, this becomes a journey of understanding what you are not and where they attached you to a name and what that was doing to you. Once you detach from it, they'll still come after you. It's called phishing with a PH. They'll still try and get responses from you and all the rest of it. But once you understand what the legal name is, what a Christian name is, what a surname is, what you are and what you are not, it just sits a lot easier in your own mind.
And the problem,
Okay. So
Is that a vague answer? That is vague.
that's a good answer, but how does that play out in like life, day-to-day life?
Oh,
okay,
okay. Go,
sorry,
Carl.
wanna go? Okay. So mainly, basically, what it is, most people don't realize that contract law, with contract law, contracts can only be made between corporation and corporation, or a man and woman and a man and woman, or woman and woman, or man and man. But you can never have a mixture of the two. A company cannot have a contract with a man or a woman, living entity. So what they do, they convert our name into an implied corporation, as Alex just mentioned. So the benefit of what that is that if we can recognize that, we can then go and claim the name from Companies House and allow that name to be expressed to the public because it's printed in the Gazette, the London Gazette, which is the legal paper what they go by. So once we've done that, that pushes us away from that whole commerce jurisdiction, like the Lex Mercatoria. The Lex Mercatoria back in 1832. And basically, the Lex Mercatoria, with King William, we've got common law of the land, but it was only the common law in the courts, and everybody had the same viewing. But the common law is still a legal system. That's the thing, which most people get confused with, because common law is still legal. It's not law, it's legal still. But then what they had was Lex Mercatoria, which was maritime law of all the ships coming in from all around the country, like with slavery and things like that, and different products, senses, teas from India and stuff like that. So they created a law themselves called the Lex Mercatoria for all those who would, all the merchants of the ships.
Can I define, Carl? Can I define
Sorry?
quickly? Can I jump in there and define?
Sure.
Okay, this is from the Law Dictionary, just to jump in. Lex Mercatoria, in case anyone hasn't heard of it, which is it's the modern age legal system. But Lex Mercatoria, in all capital letters, the law merchant, the system of laws which is adopted by all commercial nations and constitutes a part of the law of the land. It is part of the common law. Gate versus Valva.
Sorry, I got my dates wrong. Not 1832, it was 1232. Sorry, 1232. But then in 1752.
1752.
Lord Mansfield, first Earl of Mansfield, William Murray, he merged common law with commercial law with the Lex Mercatoria. So now all of us are living in a dual jurisdiction of common law and commerce. But if you don't realize what you're looking at, then you're always being drawn into that. And as Alex says, even though we claim back the name, they're still going to try and draw you into that jurisdiction of being an implied company, for example. So the benefit really is, once you claim that, then no corporation like your gas, water, electric, DVLA, the courts, anyone can do business with you, because you're saying it's a dormant company, and basically they cannot write to your company if the directors haven't sat down to negotiate contracts, basically. So we know that most contracts that we are in at the moment are unilateral contracts, where it's only you signing the contract and they don't give signing to the contract either. So there's a lot. There's a lot. It's so much to go in. I mean, like we've got
So
hundreds of.
it's not necessarily a case of I guess some people might think that it would mean giving up your passport, it would mean giving up your driving license, but really what you're doing is you're just using those instruments against them.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is, like, again, with the driving license, as you just mentioned, the driving license is for someone who's actually employed by DVLA. Do you see? That's what driver means in the Black's Law Dictionary. A driver is one who's employed to conduct a coach, cart, wagon pulled by a horse, mule, or any other animal. That's why they call your transport like a car or a bike. They say it's got horsepower because it's being pulled by a horse, and that's what a driver would be. Because a car is the original name for a car is a chariot. And that's what they was riding back in the days in Rome. They was riding chariots pulled by horses. So they was pulling a car, but they was doing a job. That's the thing about it. So we don't really look at language as we should do, because we think that, okay, English language, yeah, we're English, we know that. But going back to William Murray, he worked himself up all the way up to Chief Justice. He was Scottish. And he even turned around in his own book and he said the advantage he had over the English is that how the English couldn't read and write English.
This is
That's
it.
the problem. So they were reading Greek and Latin and writing their words in capital letters. So they wasn't understanding the definitions of and knowing English language, where he was Scottish. So he had to learn English. So he could see the problem, what was going on with the English language. And he had a big advantage over the English lawyers and solicitors, where the English and lawyer solicitors don't know this. That's the problem. So they try and draw us in, giving their own ways of dealing with things. Do you see? And we get caught up in that. But it's up to us and to do our own due diligence, not to believe what these solicitors and lawyers are telling us, because they work for the bar. They don't work for you. But if you gain the knowledge for yourself, you can read the law dictionaries and everything else, because ignorance of the law is no excuse. So if there's the law books there and you're reading it, but another man isn't reading it, then that's the other man's fault, because he should be reading it. But we're too distracted, and they throw too many distractions in front of us to draw us away from the boring aspect of reading a legal dictionary. Do you see? So this is the problem. Sorry, I went off track. I always go off tracks.
No, but that's interesting. It's interesting that, and Carl brings up William Murray there, the Earl of Mansfield from the 1700s, because a lot of people, and I've seen it on your show, Chris, I've seen it on many other shows, they come on, they are extremely knowledgeable individuals. I sit there, I listen to them, and I think, wow, my man is on point. And then and this is why I think it's good for us to get this information out there. We're not saying people are wrong. We're just saying, hold up, stop there, take all your information and know this. Because when people come on and start talking about common law, they don't understand that William Murray, the Earl of Mansfield, they can look at this themselves, in the 1700s, merged common law and commercial law. So people have to be very, very careful when they're running around with all this knowledge, but then saying, oh, well, under common law, well, hang on a minute, you're talking about a legal system there. You sound like you're talking about law, but you're not. You're talking about legal. And if you doubt it, go back and check out when it was merged in the 1700s. And there's the reason it was done, and I haven't seen the film, so you have to think about it, but there's a film called Belle, Belle, I think it is, about a black slave girl that married. Was it the Earl of Mansfield that she married?
Yeah, it was his great grandniece.
Okay.
Because John Lindsay was his great grandnephew, but
Right.
John Lindsay was a captain away in a different country, and he slept with a slave, a black slave. So they call it slave when you're a black slave and you're under someone. But as soon as not being racist, but as soon as a white man goes and sleeps with a black slave, if they have a child, that black slave now is known as an African woman enslaved from African descent. She's not a slave, she's enslaved African woman, and they're calling her a woman. But if nobody's had a relationship with that woman from a Caucasian background, then they always will be known as a slave. But she died, so he had to bring the child, which was Belle. So he brought the child. He gave it to Lord Mansfield to look after. But another one of Lord Mansfield's relations had another granddaughter and gave Lord Mansfield that daughter as well. So Belle, the mixed race child, acted as a servant, maid servant for the Caucasian child. So they was happy in that certain sense. That's why you see some of the pictures, and it's up Kenwood House around the corner from me. So you've got a lot of stuff from there. So he because he had a mixed race great grandniece, he wanted to outdo slavery because of that, because he didn't want them to remove the child basically from the country and outrun her. So they outdid slavery in 1834. And in 1836, they created the birth certificate for everybody. Do you see? It made everybody a slave now. Sorry.
They didn't stop slavery, they just included everyone.
They changed it. They make us walk around with our birth certificate, which isn't even called a birth certificate. Anyone go and grab your birth certificate. You do get a compliment slip style thing, which is called a certificate of birth. Not that. The other big document after 69, which had 17 boxes on it, is called a certified copy of an entry. It's not called a birth certificate. It's called a certified copy of an entry, and it states at the bottom very, very clearly that this certificate is not evidence of identity. And all of your information is on that document. It's a watermarked document. It looks like a banknote. It has an individual banknote style number in the top right-hand corner, and everything is within one big box with 17 small boxes. And when you start going through the law dictionaries and you look up things like four corners, you will see that if a document cannot be examined to all four corners without any interruptions, separators, boxes, anything like that, if it can't be examined to all four corners, then it is not on one skin. That means that anything in the box should be lifted off of the page and is a separate document. So when you look at your certified copy of an entry, which is what everything is based on, you start to see the certified copy of an entry is a slave document. When you
the first document you get would be a certificate of birth, but the words are split up by the seal in the middle of the page at the top. So it's not reading a true wording, and it's all written in capital letters as well, which is in the English language, they're acronyms, or in the legal world is legalese. Sorry, Alex. Go ahead.
No, that's true. And this is this system that we're talking about here is so factual, and it feels very straightforward to me. But actually, the further we go through it, it's very, very delicate. Like Carl mentioned there, little things like if it's in capital letters and we're writing in English, it has to be an acronym. Now, people go, oh, that's convenient. No, it's not convenient. When you go and look in the Chicago Manual of Style, which is the essential guide for writers worldwide, it states in there how a capital letter word can be used as a gloss within sign language or finger spelling. So we could do it that way. There, if you go to the Oxford Styles Guide, Newhart Rules, which again is talking just facts, it will you go to abbreviations and symbols, and you can see acronyms in there as well. So acronyms are being used everywhere, but it's to deceive us.
Acronyms only came in 1943, because if we go and look at Samuel Johnson's Dictionary of Grammar back from the 1800s, the acronyms in that dictionary is not actually there. The definition of acronym is not there. Acronyms only came in 1943. World War II, was that? Well, yeah, I think World War I or two. I'm not sure, but anyway. Sorry, Alex.
Yeah, no.
One other thing. What Alex mentioned earlier on about the one entire skin. This is the problem we've got with the Royal Courts of Justice at the moment. Because when you look at the word deed in Black's Law Dictionary and you see the definition, it tells you it should be on one entire skin. That's the word deed from Black's Law. But with the Royal Courts of Justice, they're putting boxes all over the page. And then they're also writing certain words in capital letters, which are acronyms. And the last thing, they're not adding. Oh, no, I'll get to that in a second. I'll get to that. Sorry, Alex. Go on. It's about the legal name, really, because we have been given these documents to create a legal name for ourselves, for them to give us a legal name. But the legal name they're giving us is a fictitious legal name, and the name that they're giving us is for a firm, corporation, or individual person, which is a corporation, expressed. That is.
They're essentially getting us all to commit fraud.
There you go. But we're aiding and abetting in the fraud ourselves because we're not realizing what's going on with the language. Because the language in capital letters, there's 4 ways you can write the words in capital letters. The first way is acronym. There's totally 2 languages. One's English, what we just discussed, is an acronym. The second one is what Alex pointed out, which Romilly Stewart and Rohan Lorien brought forward for the Chicago Manual of Style under American Sign Language. That's the 2 languages we only have. The other 2 ways of writing it, one's legalese for the Law Society's textbooks. It's not a language. It's just their way of doing things in the Law Society, and it hasn't been recognized by the world as a language, proper language. And the last way is company titles. So when they're writing your name in capital letters, they're actually writing in legalese and referring to you as an implied company, so their company can do a contract with you. As I stated earlier, contract can only be made between corporation and corporation, whether it's implied or whether it's expressed corporation. Sorry.
Well, that's good. You did explain that well. So just answer me this then, because my wife pays all the bills. It comes out of her account. It's just we set her extra account up to be like the mortgage account, basically. So all the bills go out of that account. What happens when you get a so-called electricity bill?
In what respect?
So a lot of people touch wood, we've been okay, but a lot of people over the last few years have seen extortionate electricity bills where people just cannot afford to pay what they're charging.
Well, you just said it. It's extortion. They're robbing.
Exactly.
But people don't realize they're being robbed because they don't want to pay attention to their own English language. This is the thing. And when you try and tell people, their ego jumps in. If oh no, that's not all that what Alex was just explaining just a minute ago. You see, people don't want to be proven wrong because they think we think we know it already. But we don't. We need to go and study this stuff. Remember, lawyers and solicitors go and train for like 5 years. One of my cousins, she's a lawyer. Well, she's a solicitor, lawyer. But I asked her the question, how much common law did you actually learn when you were studying? She said, it's a 5-year course in the first year of the first term. So that's like first 3 months.
Yeah.
In that first year, that's the only amount of common law they learn in the whole 5 years. So you're always learning legal. That's the thing. So when they come out, they can only talk about legal. Going back to Lord Mansfield saying he's had an advantage over the English because they're learning Greek and Latin, and they haven't stopped using that. That's the thing.
Yeah.
So when corporations like the gas company and electric company are writing to you, you've got to check your mail. And if your name's written in capital letters, they're writing to an implied company because that gas company and electric company cannot do a contract with you because the directors of them companies are not standing up and saying, okay, we're giving you gas. Remember, we're working under the Lex Mercatoria, which is merchants. So when these merchant ships are coming in, you're getting those who are getting on board the ship and going being the middleman and taking off them to go and sell to the public for their own commission to give back the original money or whatever they are to the merchants. So there's the middleman we're dealing with, because with companies, you never see the shareholder. You always see the directors and you always see the person with significant control. So the directors are just the captains of the ship, or they're operating the ship for the owners of the ship. The owners doesn't even have to be on the ship for it to be controlled.
See,
That's why.
I actually, I don't know if it's aired yet, but I've made a video about post and the difference between post and mail,
Perfect.
and how mail is like that would be like a ship. It's
Yes.
carrying the vessel. And it's up
Yes.
to you whether or not you board that ship and send it back. And yeah.
And this is why Alex mentioned earlier on, when they send a letter, for example, as you said to your wife, they're going to be writing her name in capital letters, which is phishing with a PH. They're phishing. If you respond to that and open that and look, oh, yes, mine. Oh, you're the one who's putting yourself into the problem. You start the problem. You can return to sender and send it back. Do you see?
This
But we don't
is
know about that. Go on, Alex. Sorry.
you know, you went back and said about the bills originally, and what I was going to say there is exactly what Carl's just gone through. Who is the bill for? Now, if you don't have a contract, they will write your name as, I don't know, Mr. John Henry Doe, and it'll be uppercase and lowercase. So when people hear this and they think, well, I've seen my name written to from corporations in uppercase and lowercase. Yes, you have. When there is no contract, it will be an uppercase and lowercase, and there will be a Mr. before it. The Mr. is the title that they give to you, which brings you into their legal system. So it's more about, okay, if they're billing you, for want of a word, sending me a bill, well, who's me? Because when you look at that letter, there's going to be some very significant things going on. First of all, the envelope will not be addressed. They put a magic window on it that we look through, and it actually creates four corners as well, funnily enough. So you shouldn't really be able to see that. But we're looking through a window on an envelope, seeing a capital letter word, say Alex or Chris or Carl, and we're opening it like that's just us. So we've taken responsibility and liability now for this mail. But hang on a minute, the name's in capital letters. Now people go, oh, capital letters, capital. Well, hang on, go back, look at what capital, learn English, and then understand what that means. Because by opening that, if you want to get technical, you're committing mail fraud, because you are opening mail that is not addressed to you, that should be returned to sender. People think, oh, and I hear a lot of people say this, oh, just throw it in the bin. Okay, yeah, and I hear that's one way you can deal with this, fine. But when you return to sender, the mail just doesn't go back to sender. It goes off to somewhere called the dead letter office, where it is registered and kept as part of this big system. It will show that that was returned to sender. So you're running your company correctly.
Yes.
You're not opening mail that is not addressed to you. If they are writing it in capital letters and it genuinely is to your company, then they need to express that by putting limited after it. And if they don't, then it's returned to sender. Now, again, going back to the phishing thing, I'm actually having this with a company that you may know at this point in time called British Gas Trading Limited. Now, I had a call from these guys again yesterday. Normally I don't answer their calls, but for the last couple of weeks, if I've seen it come up 03330, I answer it. And I answered it yesterday. I didn't say a word. And they said, oh, is this Alex? And I didn't answer that either. I just said, who's this? I then went on to speak to them and say, right, you're calling me because you're trying to book in to change a meter. Okay, I have a problem. And I gave them my company number. And I told them the name of the company. And I just said, we don't have any contracts with you, genuinely. Please, can you take this information to your legal team, explain to them that they are writing to a company. There's the company number. They can view it on Companies House. It's public domain. Can you just provide me with the name of the person that actually did this contract with you? Because I have no idea what you're talking about. You're coming to my house, you might as well be coming and saying, oh, hi, my name's Billy and I'm from Billy's Driveways and we've just come to install a driveway on your house. Hang on a minute, I didn't ask for that. Can you show me a contract? We need to get stricter with these people because they are holding us accountable, but we don't bother holding them accountable. And that's what this does. It puts it back into their court.
And going back,
sorry.
Sorry, Alex. Going back to your wife, Chris, for a second. If remember, this is for all of us. We don't have a name. Our parents gave us our name. which was their intellectual property to think of that name and give it to us. But they didn't give us the document with that name or the certificate. They gave it to the government, and the government gave it us. It's like a logbook and a manufacturing statement of origin for a car, for example. Yeah. So if your wife has got these letters coming in, she needs to claim her name so they can't send that to her, because they're sending it to the name that your mother and father gave over to the government, and we're acting on behalf of that name. So we're acting as an implied director for a company that doesn't even exist and not even registered on Companies House. Once you register the name, it doesn't matter. Now it's being registered at Companies House, so they can't come after your wife, for example. So she can now return the letters. If she returns the letters now and she doesn't have the company, they will still come after her due just from the fact that she has a birth certificate or certified copy of an entry. What Alex discussed and explained just a minute ago. Do you see? So these are the things that we've got to be aware of and know that they're actually doing contracts with an implied company rather than an express company.
So when you send these letters back, then would it be just return to sender on the envelope, or would you actually state you're writing to a company?
You can write various things on their address, not known, incorrect addressee. Please address. It really doesn't matter as long as you're returning to sender and taking a photograph. I mean, what I do is take a photograph of every letter, front and back, and I email it to myself so it's held in a certain location. And they are not just photographs to prove I returned to sender. That is my evidence. So if they ever try to take me anywhere and say they sent me 15 letters, well, I'll just say, what dates was that? I'll go back into my emails and I'll go, there's the 15 letters. They were all returned to sender. Look how you addressed this. Look how you addressed that. Look how you addressed this. All incorrect.
And when you are writing return to sender on the envelope, you can put an arrow pointing to your name in the box and right beside it, can you explain the acronym? Underneath that, you can put misrepresentation. Do you see? Because misrepresentation, mistake of fact, and non-disclosure, because they haven't given you disclosure on what language they're using. These are the problems. And then date it, and then take a picture, as Alex says, and then just send it back in the post box.
And don't forget, you can if you think this all sounds a bit not sure, go onto Companies House or go onto Google or somewhere and put like United Kingdom Companies House, and you watch it bring up United Kingdom Limited. And if we're not even talking about David Cameron Limited, Boris Johnson Limited, all these other entities, they're all owned by the banks, Coots generally. But so going back to what Carl said originally about contracts, a contract can only exist between two of the same kind. So me and you, Chris, we could have a contract that I'm going to cut your grass, you're going to give me a tenner. I'll charge you 20 quid because, it's a bit, tenner don't go very far now. But we could have a contract together. Alex Limited and Chris Limited could have a contract together, but I can't have a contract as Alex with Chris Limited because, it's just completely different entities. So if the United Kingdom is a country and it is a company, which that is a fact because it's on Companies House, and I am Alex Limited, well, one office cannot be incumbent to another office. Therefore, the office of Alex Limited is not underneath the office of United Kingdom Limited. We are two totally separate entities. I've removed that name from the jurisdiction of the United Kingdom, and I've stored it in a state of dormancy on the land, essentially. So I've taken it out of the Sea of Commerce, the maritime law that is the United Kingdom jurisdiction, and I've stuck it on the land in a state of dormancy. I've completely surrounded it in marble because nobody can do a contract with a dormant company. And I've also then set up the trademark and various other things around this name to protect it. No one can engage with the name. If you want to get factual, no one can engage with the name in commerce. But, this is just dealing with the fact.
I'm glad you mentioned a lot of that because that kind of leads me on to this bit. Now, obviously, I too, like you and many others, have claimed the name, but now, voluntary, before it becomes mandatory, the Companies House are wanting us to validate our ID.
Mm.
Now, the only forms of ID, my driving license is my company name. So I can't really validate me using company. The birth certificate plainly says on the bottom not to be used as a form of ID. So how is one supposed to do this?
So a legal name under common law consists of one Christian name and one surname. Whenever you look at any of the documents that they're asking you for, they don't have a Christian name and surname. They have a name and surname. A name is the designation of an individual person or of a firm or corporation.
Mm.
A Christian name is the baptismal name, as distinct from the surname. It's
And
the
they
no.
don't, and they
It says
never,
here.
and they never want to accept the baptism certificate as identification because
Mm.
it states Christian name and surname on the document itself. That's why going back to the enrolled depot at the Royal Courts of Justice, when you go and when you go and claim your name at the Royal Courts of Justice, they have new name and old name. They don't have Christian name, but they want to try and turn around and say, oh, it's religious implications. That's why they don't have it. No, your legal books actually state Christian name and surname under legal name. So they should be mirroring that because they're given it from their own legal books. So the beauty about it, we're using their own legal definitions against them now. Now they're trying to run away from that because, as Alex says, if you look on your certified copy of an entry, whether it's before 69 and it's a landscape 10 box, or it's a portrait after 1969, it's a portrait 17 box. On that, with those who were born before 1969, they can't have a legal name because they don't have a surname on their document. And that document was created using the baptism certificate around 1834, 1836. They brought the birth certificates in then. Certified copy of an entry. We'll call it birth certificates for easy knowing, but it's not called a birth certificate. But they brought that in for those before 1969. But they realized that any document before 1969 on a birth certificate, they've only got name, if any, in box 2. So they've only got your Christian name in that box. Your mother and father in their boxes have the surname, but you don't. So how can you have a legal name from your birth certificate? You can't. That's why they had to change the documents in 1969 to add the surname on the 17 boxes. So the whole name now is John Henry Doe, rather just John Henry. Because now they've said, okay, now we can give them a legal name because that matches with the definition of the Black's Law Dictionary or any other dictionaries. If we go into Halsbury's or Jowett's Dictionary of Law, English law, you won't find legal name in that book, but you will find it in Black's Law Dictionary. Do you see? So it's a very, very, very deceptive, but very, very clever thing they're doing. So
wasn't there a big hoo-ha with the Enroll Depot?
Yes,
recently?
that's what we're going through at the moment. I mean, I've written to them, but they're trying to fob us off with, oh, thank you for the feedback for our depot. No, we've already got our depot, so we're disputing the facts, what's being given to us, because I've paid for my depot. So you're taking money off me and selling me something as a misrepresentation of what it really is. So now that's fraud. And it's the same thing with, if you go to the birth registrar, if you type in the birth registrar on Google, for example, and you type in birth certificate, the birth registrar is selling you a birth certificate, but it's not called a birth certificate. So they're, again, misrepresenting the idea of a certified copy of an entry by selling it to you as a birth certificate. You see,
but this is the thing, though, and this is why you're fighting against blatant criminals, aren't you?
Yes.
So there's no honor on their part.
Yeah.
So it's like we're trying to do all this to compensate what they're doing.
Well, I wouldn't call them criminals. The thing about it is, it's us who's allowing it to happen. We can easily see that. But as I said earlier on, if we're not, if you've got the Black's Law Dictionary and I don't, and you're reading it, you're going to have more knowledge than me in that way of dealing with things. So you can fool me into believing that, but it's up to me then to go and read the book to find out, oh, you're doing this to me. I'm going to stop that. So now you can stop it, because as Alex mentioned earlier on, when all these companies are coming forward trying to, there's no one man or woman that's signing their name at the bottom to say that they're actually giving you something. That's the problem. They always sign it off as either director, or they just don't sign it off at all, or PP and get someone else, which is the person with significant control, do you see, or the secretary or whatever. They're getting somebody else to sign off the letter for them.
No, that's it.
You see, so going back to the passport or the ID, if you look at the passport, your name at the top is the surname first. Your surname comes first. Then underneath, they don't even call it name. They call it given name. Now, the given name would be the certificate of name given. Whether you was baptized or not, you're still given a certificate for your Christian name. But they don't want to write that Christian name down. They call it a given name in your passport. Do you see? So when you're giving over ID, the question is now, we should be going back to Companies House, which I will be, going back to company and say, well, hold up, you want me to give you a fraudulent document to identify the entity you're looking for? Because I can only give you a fraudulent document, and that was made by the Home Office, given to them a deed poll, enrolled deed poll, by the Royal Courts of Justice. So the Royal Courts of Justice is the first hand that we have to go back to, because they're the ones who's committing the fraud.
And not only that, but once they've gone through the Royal Courts of Justice and filled out this form and everything's all looked at and they've checked it all, they then hand it over to the King's Bench. And they then stamp it and say, yeah, we checked this too. And then give it to you like, that's cool. There's your name and surname. But hang on a minute.
So now we're questioning that. They're running away from it because they know we're bringing facts to the table, and they can't deal with facts because their world is just a fairy world.
Do you know what would be really handy, I think, for people like me who just aren't that wordy, and obviously I'm nowhere in the knowledge that you are, but for your Patreon members, maybe if you was to do your own letter.
Yeah, we've done templates.
I was going to say do a template, yeah.
And we've had discussions about that. Because what it is really, it's just, you're looking at the form. Now, when you look at your enrolled depot, Chris, for example, yeah.
And by the way, this was by email. It wasn't a letter through the post. This
was just an email to start with. And the thing about it, you're writing to the management of King's Bench. You're not writing to the masters and the judges. The management get it first, and they look at your email and they think, okay, shall we send it? But they don't send it. They don't want to send it to the masters or the judges to look at, because they know it's going to destroy the masters and the judges. There is no, basically, game over, because they cannot stand up to the facts, because their world is a fictitious jurisdiction world. That's all it is.
And not only that, remember that they like to run everything on fear as well. Now the email that comes out from Companies House, I'm just going to just touch on this here because it's an identity verification email, and it says all company directors and people with significant control, PSCs, need to verify their identity to prove who they are. This is a new legal requirement under the Economic Crime and Corporate Transparency Act 2023, blah, 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 blah. It will become mandatory in autumn 2025. Okay, so we stop there. Mandatory is by consent, but we won't go any further on that point. Act now to verify your identity before it becomes a requirement. So it's not a requirement at this stage. And then they then go on to say, oh, early, action could help this, that, and the other. And it goes down to say things like, if you don't, things may happen, or this could happen, or you may be, or this could be. They don't actually ever sort of say things like you will be. That flags up as red flags all over the place for me. It's like threats galore. It's important to make sure we hold the correct details for each director and PSC. You will not be able to complete identity verification if the personal information on your identity documents, such as your date of birth, does not match your information. It's just threats, 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 threats. And actually, it's just to put the wind up people. Now, I'm not saying that we're not going to do this identification or have a conversation about the identity that they are actually requesting from us. But I'm just saying that at this stage, I'm looking here at something that happened. I'm likening it to, I had a lot of friends that worked in the NHS back then. They were offering a lot of injections for things. And if you want to work, you got to have this. And they were coming to me saying, Alex, what do I do? And I just said, look, hold the line. And sort of 4, 5, 6 months passed. 3 days before the deadline for all NHS workers that were going to get sacked if they didn't have it, 3 days before, they said, oh, it's okay, don't worry about it. So again, it was a lot of threats and nothing actually happened. With this Companies House thing, I'm just going to go real slow on it.
Yeah.
Totally.
We're going
I
to
think
speak
they are
about-
just generally, because I'm guessing there's a lot more people doing it now, that
Totally.
they're making it a lot harder for people by trying to introduce these kind of bullshit methods. They're upping the prices ridiculously.
everything. Yeah.
Like
the biggest
daily.
changes to Companies House in 130 odd years as well, I think, have gone on.
Totally.
Exactly. This is,
No.
and this is why I say, because at the moment, because all the bills and that come out of my wife's, I'm not saying I don't contribute, but it all comes out of her account. So therefore, it's like the cost ratio to what I'm actually getting from it, and the stress that I get from it, because I hate being contacted by authority. I hate authority.
Yeah.
And so anytime I get like whether it's like a universal credit meeting or whether it's my heart sinks, and I just think, fuck off.
Yeah.
And the thing, going back to the identification, the thing about it, if you've got your trademark is going to be the name that hasn't changed when you do the Enroll Depot. So you're still keeping the trademark as the director. But will they accept the trademark certificate to be the director? That's the question as well. Because they can say, okay, we want ID. Now we've got our brand new passports made up to the Enroll Depot name, which is slightly different from the name that we had in the beginning, because we've added the hyphen between the two Christian names to join.
There are lots of people who have done the first bit, as in the company house bit, but haven't done the depot bit.
No, but this is it. But if you've got your trademark can act. Well, my trademark on my company acts as my director, even though I have a separate, slightly different name. I've just got a hyphen in my name where my trademark doesn't have the hyphen. And I've done that for a reason, because then I've still got that entity captured as the trademark. I don't need to do another trademark because they're not looking for that entity. They're looking for the entity, but they're looking for the passport. So what is
involved in a trademark? Because obviously that's different to
what you're doing with the trademark. All you're doing, you're buying the trademark name as the birth certificate name, but you don't change that trademark. You leave the trademark as the original birth certificate name, what you would have bought your limited company as. But then when you get your Enroll Depot, you go to the passport office, you get a new passport, then you go and convert your limited company into an unlimited company so it matches your passport.
Okay.
You see? So if they want, and your director will be your trademark name, so it won't match your passport anyway. So if they do accept the passport as ID, then they're being misrepresented. They're causing misrepresentation and mistaken facts again.
The passport is often the identification that you'll be asked for when it comes to.
I haven't got one.
No, that's fine. Well, so I would pause at that point and I would say to you, okay, what is a passport? Because they're asking for it as identification. We're handing it over as identification for us. And do we know what a passport is? Because in the law dictionary, it states very clearly, and I'll read this one out, Carl. Just in case people don't know, passport, all capital letters. This is from Black's Law, edition 4. Maritime, and it'll always be in maritime because it's for a ship, by the way. A document issued to a neutral merchant vessel by her own government. So they're calling it a her, during the progress of a war, to be carried on the voyage to evidence her nationality and protect her against the cruisers of the belligerent powers. This paper is otherwise called a pass, a sea pass, a sea letter, or sea brief. It usually contains the captain's or master's name and residence, the name, property, description, tonnage, and destination of the ship, the nature and quantity of the cargo, and the place from whence it comes and its destination, with such other matters as the practice of the place requires. In international law, a license or safe conduct issued during the progress of a war, authorizing a person to remove himself or his effects from the territory of one of the belligerent nations to another country, or to travel from a country to a country without arrest or detention on account of the war. So sorry, I know that's quite long-winded, but you know, you can look up passport in the Black's Law Dictionary on Google and you can see. So we look at passport like, oh, a bit like we look at a name. It's just a name. A passport is just to go on holiday. No, it's not. When we're using it legally, look at what a passport is. It's for a ship. They even say it's for her own government. So ships are always female. And this is why when you look at the passport, like if a ship pulled into the dock, you would see, first of all, the surname Doe on the side in big capital letters, dead entity. And then you would, once it's pulled into the port, you would say, okay, is this John? Is this Jane? Who's the captain? Who's the master? Whatever. And this is when you see on the passport why the surname capitalized is at the top. Then underneath that second is the name. When you look at the bottom, it talks about various details, but it refers you to the page above. That's where you sign. And where you sign, it says holder's signature. You're the holder. You're not the name on the document, which is for a ship. You are the holder, like you are the bank holder, like the account holder. You'll see this term used in many different locations for the name. You will see holder. And that really is all we are. And this is what we're trying to do here, is hold all of the documents for the name. There are 10, but we can only get 7 of them because 2 of them are destroyed as clinical waste at the hospital, and one of them we just can't get our hands on at all.
I get the other ones in the Vatican somewhere.
Maybe.
If I'm not a religious person, but if we look in the Bible and it says in the Bible, living soul, you see, we are living souls. We're not persons. We're not men and women. We're not humans. Human is a monster. You see, so we are just a living soul in this body, holding these documents to say that, okay, this name I'm going to use while I'm here in this realm. Basically, it's very spiritual as well, and a lot of people might go, oh yeah, blah blah blah, but you've got to look at what they are dealing with. They're dealing with cults. They're dealing with all these different ways of doing this witchcraft and all this business. Illuminati, Freemasonry, foreign relations, the Club of
Rome.
You see, you've got all of these things going on, which they're devising these things and putting them in to our face, making us try to believe that. But I don't have a name, Chris. You know me as Carl, but that's not my name. I hold the document for that name. So yeah, I can show you that as fact that yes, from the parents, my parents gave my name over to the government to get a certified copy of an entry. But that name is not mine. So I had to go and claim it. Now I've claimed it, I can run around and say, well, yeah, this was the name that my parents named me, but now I've got the documentation to say that I'm going to be happy to go along within my life to use it. But I've got the true factual based documents that allow me to carry that name in law, not legal, in law. But the problem, what they're doing is that, as I said earlier on the Enrolled Depot, they're just putting name and surname down. So you're not actually holding a true representation of the legal name anyway. So they're still playing a game there because they don't want you to have a legal name, because if you don't have a legal name, they can do anything they want. If you do have a legal name, then there's got to be somebody else on the other side that has a legal name that can come against you. Because as Alex said earlier on, if somebody's sending you a letter for, say, for example, to your wife, as again with the gas stuff, who is the man that is offering your wife gas? There is none. No. This is the problem. But people aren't seeing this. So that's why we're kind of like here now to kind of like explain certain things that we should be looking at to go and challenge them with. I mean, like, who is it? One of the guys said to me the other day that she approached Royal Courts of Justice and asked about the Enrolled Depot because there was misrepresentation on it, and they just hung up on her. They hung up on her because they know they're getting all the letters now coming through. When we first started mentioning the Enrolled Depot, Alex, how chock-a-block was the Royal Courts of Justice?
Yeah, the backlog was you were getting over a year.
But now you call Companies House, you've got open space because the Enrolled Depot process has died down now. There's not so many rushing to get it. But there was about 1,000 people who's probably gone out and got their Enrolled Depot now. That's the thing. So now it's all calmed down again. But now there's going to be another rush because everybody's going to have to go back to Royal Courts of Justice now. And that's what I said on my last Zoom meeting, that anybody who's got their Enrolled Depot, study the Enrolled Depot, find all the mistakes in it for yourself, and then write them mistakes down and put them forward to the Royal Courts of Justice to say that you need your document amended. And if they write back to say, oh, thank you for the feedback, no, go back at them and say, well, hold up. No, I wasn't talking about feedback. This was a dispute about the document you've already sold me. I'm not talking about a document that I haven't even got yet. So I don't care about the form now, but what you've given me is a misrepresentation. So I'm disputing them facts. And that's the problem they have been.
And that's
you see, sorry, go ahead.
No, and I mean it's funny because we've been holding Enrolled Depots now for years, or a couple of years myself. But again, Chris, it's been right in front of us, you know. So we're not saying we ain't perfect. We're not here saying, oh, we know exactly what to do. We're saying we are trying to figure this out. Now we went off
an error.
To a degree, but even with 30 years of knowledge from Carl, myself 3 years, and thousands of other people that are doing this, and I mean, we're talking thousands of people are doing this. We sat there and looked at the Enrolled Depot for months saying, okay, it's a legal document and it's stamped in law. Okay, we get that. Now we're going to go off, we're going to get things with this. We came back to this only recently and realised that everything was sat right in front of us. There's all these capital letter words that they use on the document. And when you look them up in Black's Law Dictionary, you can see that most of the words are there, but there's about 10, 11 words that they've put in capital letters that do not exist in the dictionary. Silly words like at and the. And they have to have definitions for everything if they're capitalising it in their law language. And they don't have the definitions on there. So they're using language that is clearly very, very unclear. And not only that, when we refer to the Four Corners rule, and we knew this, that's how you know it's a legal document. There's boxes all over it. Every bit of information, like with the certified copy of an entry, everything is in a box. Therefore, when you use their very definition of the Four Corners rule, that document's virtually blank when it comes to our personal information. So we're just going back to them with the facts and saying, look, hold up, we've gone and done this. You've got this big list of people that we're supposed to notify about an Enrolled Depot change, a doctor, you know, the employer, the bank, all these people. You're telling me to go out into the world with this document. Hang on a minute.
The problem is that this whole legal system is a contradiction within itself. Because going back to what Alex just said there about the Four Corners, if you can't see anything that's in that box, how can they take our name out and start giving us, and we can go and start using that name if it's in a box and it can't be seen? Yeah. It's a contradiction within itself.
They're making us act fraudulently.
This is the problem. And they're trying to draw us into that crime, aiding and abetting in that crime. But we don't realize that we're actually aiding and abetting in that crime and becoming criminals ourselves.
Do you think that's why they do it, though? Do you think that they they make it purposely so we're committing the crime
Of
against
course.
ourselves, so that
Of
if we do
course.
try to retaliate, they'll just throw us in prison and
But
say,
we're
"Well,
grasping on
you're
ourselves
the
all
one
the time.
breaking the law."
That's why in 1963 they took English and Latin out of the schools because they didn't want you to know the English language fully, especially grammar.
Mm.
Because if you knew the grammar, which they know in Eton and all the other Oxford and Cambridge and all that, if you knew the grammar, you would know what's going on.
We
But
discussed President Clinton, didn't we, the other week?
this is it.
He was in court and they were kind of pulling him up on all this Lewinsky stuff and all this questioning and that. And they come to him and they ask him some question. He's like, "What do you mean by the word is?"
Is
And they're like, "Oh, well, he's like, what do you mean by the word is that?" Because there's like 16 different,
definitions.
of this word. And,
That's
this is how
incredible.
these people, you spoke a minute ago and said about person, Carl. Like,
I was going to
Chris,
say, is there more than one
right. Yeah,
definition of person?
we
There's
touched,
five definitions. Go ahead, Alex.
yeah, okay, so person, a man considered according to the rank he holds in society. I mean, my God, even in that first line there, and Carl, you've pulled this all apart, words like rank,
Yeah.
society, consider, all these things have you have to drill into them. But person, a man considered according to the rank he holds in society, with all the rights to which the place he holds entitles him, and the duties which it imposes. And then
And
you've got,
so look, wait there. So
yep,
in that one first person definition, we are placed in rank. So we're the lowest rank. That's why police can have authority over us.
and rank puts us into a militarized type system.
Mister
Thank
is
you.
the
This is
lowest
it.
rank, isn't it?
And if you look at what the word Mister is, a contraction of the word marinas.
Mhm.
That's why you can have Mr. and Mrs. because S is marinas at the end or a marina. So they removed the middle of the word and shortened the word just to MR. So you're acting as a marina
Where
when
does a
you're
marina operate? This is it. Where would a marina be?
it's a seaman.
Hmm.
It's a
Well, what
thing.
about when they spell it Mister?
Well, that's the thing. Mr. is still that same rank because it's a private. Mr. is a private on the ship. It's a private in the Navy.
Okay.
You see, and they operate in maritime because it's all based around the Lex Mercatoria.
Which is
And Lex Mercatoria only dealt with the different merchants that was coming in from different parts of the world. So most of them couldn't read English as well. That's why they was using Greek and Latin.
Okay.
And Greek and Latin's all written in capital letters. So we've got to question them. What is the language they're actually using on the documents that they're getting us to fill out and use? But they don't want to answer that. If you go to a solicitor and you say to him, I went to a solicitor because some lady, her father passed away, God bless and rest in peace, his soul. But she came to me and said to me, you know about the legal business. So I went down to the solicitor with her. And I said to her, look, and in front of him, I said to her, if you want me to speak, you've got to give me permission and tell him that you're giving me permission to speak. And she said, yes. I turned around and showed him a capital letter word. And I said to him, what does that say? And 3 times I asked him and he gave me a different, he gave me a block 3 times. And then the 4th time I asked him, he says, oh yeah, it's on your screen. It's LSB Film Productions. He said that because it was written in capitals. So I said, okay, you reading that deems you as an illiterate because you're reading something that can't be explained. And then he turned to her, didn't even answer me. He turned to her and said, do you have your passport? And I turned to her and said, well, it's up to you. If you want to give him a passport, you're giving him a legal fiction and you're giving him something that's false. So she said, no, let's go. As we was getting up, he put his hand on my arm and he said to me, if you would have asked me if this language was legalese, I would have agreed with you.
Wow.
Do you see? This is so if we ask them, they will actually agree with us face to face. But when you're writing stuff, those who are the gatekeepers in front of the judges and the masters, they don't know. Some of them don't know this information. So they're not going to put it through. That's the problem we've got. They've got gatekeepers. A bit like P. Diddy. a bit like P. Diddy gatekeeping for Clive Davis, for example. This is the problem we've got, bro. So we've got to learn the language ourselves and understand what we're actually holding. Because as Alex says, on the passport, the signature page is not on the same page as the name, what's written in capitals. It's on a separate page. It's on the observation page. But when you look at the title of the signature, it's the holder's signature. Just, it's not the Christian signature. It's not the name signature. It's the holder signature. So they're telling us we are just the holder of these documents.
Like the registered keeper for your car.
There you go. Do you see? This is the problem we've got, Chris. That's the thing. And I hope that when this goes out to your group, and I'll also post it on my Patreon page or video from your channel, I hope when it goes out, people are starting to see clearer. I mean, like going back to Richard Vobes. I'm sorry to bring Richard Vobes up and promote his channel, but he's
he's a good friend.
Yeah?
Go for it.
Yeah, this is it. He's a friend with all of us. So he had Victoria Rickson on the other day talking about birthing for money. I advise people to go and watch that video because 2022, I had a guy called Justin come on, and it's one of my Truth Talks, 172, which I posted on my Patreon page. But I've just done another little video, what I've sent to Victoria, and I said, can I use this to her? Because I'm going to be meeting up with her to interview her myself with Angela and a couple of the others. Alex, you might want to come along to that as well, or even you, Chris. But yeah, with her, in 2022, I had one of the guys, Justin, after I spoke about the birth notification form, that's the first document given to us from the hospital with our name and everything else. She came onto Richard Vobes last week in 2025. Justin called me in 2022 saying that he actually got one of the friends that they had the new child actually had a big hoo-ha with the midwives, and the head matron came out, blah, blah, blah. And they eventually walked out with the birth notification form. Now, last week, we had Victoria Rickson, who is a whistleblower for the NHS, telling us about the birth notification form and all the other documents they're hiding, which we don't get.
It's incredible, isn't it?
This is what I'm talking about. So I'm just saying, look, even though the research I've done, and I'm giving the people the research I've done by looking at the factual documents, now in 2025, we're getting these whistleblowers come through actually telling us that these documents are true because it's coming from the horse. And even Richard says this is coming straight from the horse's mouth. So it's not coming from my mouth no more. It's coming from the person who's actually been working in the hospital and whistleblowing on them. And the thing, what happened with her, she even turned around after she talked about that birth notification form. She had a phone call from someone saying that people go missing for whistleblowing overnight. So she had to stop running at night and things like that. And she's scared. Now they're trying to pin, because she was a midwife, they're trying to pin the death of a few of the babies, what died, which she was helping. They're trying to pin that on her just to try and shut her up and discredit her. Same thing they done with Mark Kishore Christopher when he went to try and arrest one of the guys. They pinned it on him. So now, no disrespect, he's doing a bit of time in whatever. But I don't want to go into that.
And Mark used to own his name, but what he did was he didn't go back and do a confirmation statement. Had he still been holding the name, who knows what would have happened?
They couldn't have done nothing, because on Truth Talk 119, when I had Jessica and Martin come on, Jessica, that whole video with Truth Talk, he put his limited company document into the file of the court case, and he didn't show up. When he did show up and talk to the judge for something completely different, the judge, he asked the judge, was this about Thursday? He said, no, you were here on Thursday, but he never turned up. He just put his limited company document into court file. But he was there because they're looking for the capitalized name. They can't take you in court in an uppercase, lowercase name. So they have to capitalize your name. But because he gave over his company document, and his company document is written in capitals, and he is the nominee director of that company, the provisions of the nominee director of that company, the judge can't take responsibility of being the executor. Do you see? He now is the beneficiary. So the judge closed down the case. After he closed down the case, Martin was in the foyer, and a policeman came over and he was swearing at the policeman, for example. So the policeman picked up a book to give him a ticket. As soon as that he did that, the court prosecution service officer ran out the room and said, drop that book. He's not one of our custodians.
Yeah.
And if you look at the bottom, of your birth certificate, it states in the custody. Your name is in the custody of the birth register, so you're one of their custodians. When we get our enrolled depot and our limited company, we remove ourselves from that legal jurisdiction and become England and Wales. So we're standing in England and Wales now. We're not standing in the United Kingdom.
Like, this goes back to what we were just talking about. Person, the word person. There are
Sorry.
well, that's all right. I've got 4 different definitions here. We got person, we got artificial persons, we got natural persons, and we got the final one, which is private persons. Now, private person is very, very short, the definition. It says an individual who is not the incumbent of an office. Now, when you look at the certificate of incorporation that you get when you buy your private limited company, you will see that there's no boxes on the document. It says certificate of incorporation of a private limited company. What else is a company? A company can be a company of soldiers, right? This again is taking us back into that sort of jurisdiction, but it's clearly stating at the top of your certificate of incorporation that this is a private limited company. So when we go back to the definition of private person, we see that that is an individual who is not the incumbent of an office, and the United Kingdom is an office.
And I
So
think the people we want to be writing to, going back to your ID question, Chris, is Sarah Sackman and the Lord Chancellor. Because we need to write to them to say, well, hold up a minute. And even Companies House, we need to discuss that with Companies House, because who are they looking for and what do they want from us? So if we're not incumbent to that office, fine. And the company's dormant, so who are they looking for? This is the problem. Sorry, Alex.
no, absolutely.
And with natural person, see, I asked a question on, I done a little documentary film called Switching Perception. And I got 5 people in just to talk to them about this stuff, which they didn't really know. And I gave them all the books to read in front of the camera, basically. And you see the penny drop. But the thing about it, I asked them, and that same thing what we're doing here about person, I asked them, what definition of person would you put yourself under? And most of them said natural person. When you go and look up the word natural in Black's Law Dictionary, you got 2 definitions what relate to the person. One is a natural fool, and one is a natural born subject. If you don't get your limited company and an enrolled depot, you're known as a natural fool. So don't call yourself a natural person. Just see, if you've got your enrolled depot and your limited company, then you can call yourself a natural person, but I still wouldn't, because
What can you call yourself if you've only got one of those things?
You're just a living soul holding documents. That's it. Never call yourself a human, never call yourself a natural person, never call yourself a person. Just call yourself a living soul. That's what states in the Bible that 95% of the world reads and abide by. That's why they're dissembling the church, because we don't have a king. King Charles is not a king of England and Wales. He's the king of United Kingdom and the Commonwealth, which are registered both on Dun and Bradstreet and Companies House.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
You see? So you're a living soul holding documents that has that name on it. So whatever their name they require, the thing we should be doing is asking them, well, what name do you require? Because I hold all the documents for the name. That's why I'm saying with the trademark, if you've got the trademark, then put the trademark as an identification, because that matches what they've got on Companies House. Even if you gave them their enrolled depot and you put your enrolled depot down as a person with significant control, they're going to turn your name into a double-barrel surname. So it's still not your true name that they're putting down.
My name is...
Sorry, go on.
So that's right. You see, so that's the problem we've got. You see, Chris, so again, it's really up to us to do our due diligence, to go and question Companies House. What documents are you looking for? Because if you're looking for the passport, I'm very wary of giving you that, because I've already seen the passport office and I've already spoken to Companies House, Royal Courts of Justice, about the name not being the true representation of a legal name that they're looking for. They require a true legal name, but the passport doesn't state a true legal name, because it's created it from an enrolled depot, which wasn't a true legal name. So we have to go back to the Royal Courts of Justice to start the journey again. As Alex said, we got our Enroll Depot, but I even went and got my passport and tried to open up a new NatWest bank account. And I have to stop. I have to hold guns now because we've noticed all these mistakes and what's going on. So now we're questioning that. But I've just gone and paid for a passport, hundred and something pound. Is Royal Courts of Justice gonna compensate me for that? Are they going to give me back the money for me to go and wasting my money for a name that they gave me? But yet still, Companies House is accepting that name as a true legal name, but it isn't. They ask, we need a legal name, but they're not accepting. They want to accept a fictitious name, not even a fictitious legal name. They want to accept a fictitious name. That's the problem. Sorry, Alex.
No, I was going to say, with regards to this problem that we've had with the Royal Courts of Justice and the basically just completely messed up Enroll Depot form that is just crazy. We also got Carl came across and sent to me something which again they teach very little of in law, but it's called tort law, which is to do with negligence, and there's something within that. Is it the Caparo?
That's right. The Caparo test.
The Caparo what? Sorry.
Caparo test.
The Caparo test, that's it, which is 3 different things that you can prove to kind of bring tortious liability into play. And if you can prove that there is tortious liability, then you are allowed to sue for remedy. And with tort law, most cases are settled out of court without a jury. Now, this is, and it also says that this can happen, it's normally between person and person, but it can happen between person and government or person and corporation. These are things that they specifically state within tort law. Now, so far as I see it, and
technically, isn't person and corporation the same thing?
Yes, person and corporation is the same thing because person is seen as a corporation as well.
Yeah, it can be, absolutely. So we have a remedy to this. There is a way through this because they did have a duty of care to us and they did tell us to do certain things, and everything they've told us and everything they've done for us has been done incorrectly. So moving forward, I can see a pathway through this basically, but like Carl says, we're so distracted by so many things. And really, this is the most important thing in our entire lives. And people just can't grasp that. Even me, I get distracted from day to day. In my mind, there are things that I want to be doing that I am not doing. And
even just down to the bills, like you just mentioned about your wife, Chris. That's a distraction. You've got to go out and distract yourself to find work, to get money that doesn't exist, to pay these bills. That's one big distraction, first of all, because you're scared, or a lot of people will fear, I'm not saying you, but a lot of people will fear that they can't pay their rent or pay their bills. But it's none of it there because it's all being paid for anyway. That's the problem. This is where the big distraction comes in. And remember, in the Bible, it says that man can subdue the creatures and the beast. And subdue means to deceive and seduce. So they seduce you, the DVLA seduce you, says, yeah, come and get a driving license. You can go around in your friends and have a good time and ride around in the car. But they deceive you by saying, right, you got to pay this, you got to pay this, you got to pay this, you got to pay this. They didn't tell you that before.
Well,
they're deceiving you.
As well. They just transform you.
They also deceive you by the simple fact where they're giving your God-given rights, they're taking them and they're giving them back to you in license form.
Thank you.
We're not bothering to look up what a driver is, so more fool us. On that note, by the way, Carl mentioned some 2 superb videos that he did called Switching Perceptions. I've just posted them both in the text here, Chris. So take those, copy them. They're actually through my Dark Acronyms page, but they link to Carl on the Hornsey Wood. So those 2 interviews there, where he sat normal, everyday people from all different parts of society, in closed brackets, and they read these words, and like he says, you see the penny drop. God, there isn't a person, a man or woman, whatever you want to say around, that wouldn't read these books if they actually stopped and thought about the paragraph or 2 that they're reading and go, what? Is this real? Is it what? And this is what those videos show you. They're not very long, only about half an hour each, but I've put them there, and hopefully you can share those with your listeners, because it's wrong.
Sorry to cut you there quickly, Ali. There's an
Right?
elder man on Switching Perception. His name's Conrad. They've all introduced themselves with their name and their occupation. Listen to the occupation he is and what he's doing. And even people like that, he's like a psychologist and he's like a counselor for other people. So
Now,
if
is this something that you would want me to share on my
yeah, you can do. You
If
can.
It's in the public
You
domain.
if I was
it's
to
on
make
the
a
public
video on
domain.
it, if I was
Yeah,
to
it's a
make a
public
video on it,
domain, so not a problem. It's in the
Yeah,
public.
anyone can go on YouTube and watch it. I'm just giving
okay,
you.
it was only because it's all via Patreon. I wanted to make
No,
sure.
no, no. That's not.
Just
That,
YouTube. Just YouTube
Okay.
Switching
yeah.
Perceptions. Hornsey Wood Switching Perceptions.
Okay.
I've just given you the links from my
Yeah.
page. That's all. But you can
Yeah.
go. You can use that same thing.
What's your page, Alex? If it's on there as well.
Dark acronyms.
Okay.
DARKACRONYMS, but I've put the link there. And all I do, Carl, with your stuff is if I'm posting anything that's public domain from your page, I never kind of take the video and post it as mine. I just link it to yours
Yeah, that's not a problem, bro.
because you know
We need the information to get out there. That's the thing about. But then we're getting people. No disrespect to anybody. I'm not going to mention no names, but you're getting a lot of people want to run around and teach the legal. Where we should stay away from legal. Stay away. Don't write no legal letters, nothing. Because once you do that, you're going in and you're getting involved with it. And you're just creating yourself
You're
more
committing
headache.
joinder.
This is it. You're creating headache for yourself. I mean, I've had one woman through Angela, when I went to her hub and spoke to them, they're saying, oh, yeah, blah, blah, blah. And they've gone and done things with their limited companies. Well, hold a minute, your company's dormant. Now, DVLA is right into their limited company. Do you see?
Yeah.
Now you've got to back that up. Now you're putting yourself back in a legal war again, where you don't need to do anything. As I keep saying, I don't have insurance, I don't have tax, I don't have MOT, I don't even have a license. And I'm riding my motorcycle around, which is a bicycle, what DVLA classes as a bicycle. So I'm riding that around all over London with all the cameras around, and I'm not getting stopped. I'm not getting no tickets, not getting nothing coming back. And if they do write anything to me, they're writing my name as John Doe, not John Henry Doe. So that's just going return to sender. This is the problem they've got now.
So
because
you're not even getting any hassle from like the cops?
I don't get nothing, Chris.
So that surprises me because a lot of people try it and they still get, because much like bailiffs and whatnot, they'll always still try their luck, won't they? So I'm surprised that you are completely left alone.
I mean, I had a contravention ticket come through, which was long ago. Now, I had NSL clamp my bike. I cut it off, threw it over the fence, got in touch with NSL, looked up NSL on company's house, saw that the directors and a solicitor was running that company. So I wrote to all of them and invoiced them individually £5,000 a day. As soon as I was starting to send it, they sold the debt to CDER. They came round. My brother was in. He spoke to the guy, said I wasn't here. The guy put a clamp on my bike, sat out there for 2 hours and waited. He must have been checking out my name. He probably seen that my name was a limited company and a trademark, and he removed the clamp 2 hours later and left, and he hasn't come back.
Wow.
This is the problem, what they've got now. As long as we stand our ground, as soon as you start returning sender your letters, they will research and look up your name. Once they research and look up your name, if you put in the name in Google straight first, the first result will be your company. So when they're researching your name, they will see that it's a company and they think, shit, we don't have a contract with this company or anybody else. But the problem is the council are not telling NSL that we're a company. NSL isn't telling CDR we're a company, but they're selling each other the debt and waiting for the other one to find out for themselves, thinking, CDR is probably saying, NSL has just sold us a dead debt because they didn't tell us it was a company.
We had a gentleman down the road from where I am, and it was council tax non-payment, and both the council and I can't remember who the agency was now. So he was being demanded money from like two directions. It's like, well, hang on, how can that be? I
mean, like, if Angela was on the call, she mentioned that she had a problem with DVLA and NSO and stuff. So she puts her own clamp on her own will. Now she doesn't do it because she had a letter. She explained it in one of the other meetings. She had a letter she had two letters. Same from DVLA. One was saying, "Oh yeah, blah blah blah. You owe us this, blah blah blah. You're this, blah blah." And the second letter was like, "Oh, hello, nice to meet you. Would you like to have a license? Would you like to have a just see?" So it was coming from the same office. Two different letters, one negative, one positive. One trying to draw her in, one trying to get things off her. And this is what they do. This is what they do. It's crazy, seriously. But if we don't do our due diligence and start looking at this stuff ourselves, we're the ones who's putting ourselves into the problem. It's not them putting us into a problem. It's ourselves putting us into the problem because we're not educating ourselves enough.
It's funny because, Carl, you've likened it before, and I totally agree with this one. When people receive this sealed letter in the post, it's like they're opening up a tomb.
This is it.
Like you open up the letter and out comes the dread and fear.
Do you know, that's what I was saying earlier about whenever you get like a text or a letter from UC or company's house and the heart goes,
yes, totally.
You know, this is why they put it in a window inside and you read through it and open it fraudulently, because they're not allowed to send you letters that could be harmful under the Malicious Mail Act. So if you're
that's why they don't write anything on the envelope, and they write it on a letter inside, what Alex explained earlier on, with a clear plastic label box.
You know what they do when you go to court? Because I've done it, and I returned a letter before to the police. This was a speeding fine.
Don't stand in a box, which technically, if that's like the paper,
I did it online, but what they did was when they produced it as an article, an exhibit for evidence, was they produced the letter that they had sent to me because I said you sent it incorrectly, and I'd marked up the envelope and sent it back to them. When they produced that as evidence, they only produced the envelope. So because there wasn't a letter inside it anymore, the evidence they provided was a completely empty envelope. It had all my writing all over it. But where the window was, the inside back of the back page of the envelope, if you like, is like a checkered design. It always is in these standard envelopes. When you remove the letter from it, that becomes like a grey checkered area. There's no information on it. And they're going, yeah, look, that's what we sent to you. So they're showing you that it wasn't addressed when it goes to court. They show you that by taking the letter out of the envelope and producing the envelope they sent. It has nothing on it.
Nothing.
But you open it. I saw that factually. And for that same thing as well, I will just say, hand on heart here, I had 2 speeding fines come through. I was on 9 points, so I knew no matter what happened, I was going to 12. And I do drive as part of my job for a living. Now, one of those speeding fines came to me. What happens is it goes to the people that lease my car, it goes back to the police, it goes to the company that I work for, then it goes back to the police, and then it gets sent to me. That's how it works. There was 2 fines, they both existed, and I have copies of them sent from my work. One of those fines I ended up getting involved with because I created Joinder, because for whatever reason, I won't go into the detail, but I created Joinder. That one I ended up going to court for. The other one went to my work. It existed. It's a fine that exists that has to be paid. It never ever came to me it never came to me. So something cut in there, Chris. And that would fall in line with what was happening with, and that's hand on heart. Yes, I did have to go and deal with one. I did, but I got involved with that. The other one, it didn't even come to me. And the only reason the first one came to me is because Mavis up at the whatever police thing, she got involved because there's a story behind it. But I know what happened there. There was involvement, therefore human interaction caused it to start happening. But the other one was completely automated. It went to 2 people and was told to be sent to me, and it never came to me. So, it's a mad one.
We got to be careful in what we're doing. That's the thing, because as we all spoke about earlier on, there's so much distractions, and we get caught off with them distractions that pull us away from the studying that we should be doing. They don't teach legal in schools, so how are we going to learn about it? And they're just going to throw us in the middle of it and expect us to do X, Y, and Z for them because they want to go and spend money on war and kill people. and I'm not supporting that at all. Everyone's my brother and sister, full stop. So no matter what color you are, no matter what color I am, you are still my brother or my sister, and I'm going to help you as much as I can by giving you knowledge and doing what we can do and standing together to help each other away from these distractions. That's the problem they've got now, as I keep saying.
And we don't try and
Sorry,
distract over in this camp. We don't try and distract people by going down legal pathways. I've spoken to Carl before and said, "Carl, what do you think of this?" And I know that Carl's been down that pathway, and he's turned to me and be honest and be like, "Look, you can go down it. It's a dead end." So, we're very lucky actually the amount of research that's already gone in at this stage. Now, there's something really interesting as well that I'd like to mention. This is to do with when this all sort of started. Carl purchased his company in 2015, didn't talk about it till 2019. After that point, people started buying their names from Companies House and setting them up as dormant with their name in all the positions. So they were putting names on the land. In 2020, we had an event happen which they started to refer to it as coronavirus, which if you invert that, that's virus of the crown, right? Now, now again, Carl says this before. We're not saying that this is why this has happened, but you've got people essentially turning up on the land. You then have an event happen on Earth called coronavirus or virus of the crown. You then
they don't
see,
even call it wrong.
sorry.
And they don't even call it that no more.
No, but this is what I was going to say. They called it coronavirus, virus of the crown. The Queen left her residence of work, Buckingham Palace, and went to Balmoral because queens live in castles, not in palaces. So she had to come back over, I believe, and serve the names that were turning up on the land because she couldn't be master. She couldn't be she couldn't be under two masters, the land and the sea. So she had to come back to the land, and then
That's the problem
yeah,
Sorry.
no, but you notice 6 months after it was all coronavirus, coronavirus, coronavirus. Then all of a sudden it changed.
Ukraine.
Well, no. Before that,
Congo.
again, the language. So you got coronavirus, which is a virus of the crown. The Queen buggers off to come back and serve the land, the living, and then they change it to an acronym because it's always in capital letters, and they call it COVID-19.
Certificate of Identification 2019.
Certificate of vaccination.
That's why they're bringing this ID in, because they want you to have ID, and it's the certificate of vaccination ID.
Yep. There you go. So otherwise, and again, it's maybe just a coincidence, but it went from coronavirus, where we saw, okay, coronavirus is also a group of colds, right? But however, let us look at coronavirus as a different word, the same way that we do person or name or surname and all that. And let us look at coronavirus because that is virus of the crown. If there's a virus of the crown, there's a problem.
And buying up.
Eh?
It's a virus that people are running around buying up the crown, which we're doing
Absolutely.
with our name as limited companies.
Yeah. And then she moves.
There
And
you
then she's gone. And now we're dealing with a certificate of vaccination identification, aka COVID-19. So was that to do with what we're doing here? I don't know.
And if we look at one of the Irish politicians, she actually stood up in Parliament later on when they brought out the second or the third vaccination, and it was called Omicron. So when that was an anagram of moronic.
Yeah,
and she stood up and questioned that.
No Crimbo, because it was Omicron B. No Crimbo. And 0 micron, which is 0 of the smallest measurement in the entire world.
Crazy.
Taking the Michael, aren't they?
And now they're coming out after
or
all
measuring
these.
my micro penis, one of the two.
Sorry, Chris, say that again.
I said, or measuring my micro penis, one of the two.
See, that's the thing. This is the problem. This is the problem we're putting ourselves into. They're not doing it to us. We're not just aware of what's going on and standing up for ourselves, because most people want to depend on the government. That's the problem.
Stepping into adulthood.
They need a parent company. They need to be looked after. They want to be looked after.
Totally. Most people don't want to do things for themselves because they're so distracted by other things. But if we remove our distractions, then we've got more time to think.
No,
That
You'll start to see things like acronyms. This is why coronavirus written in uppercase, lowercase. Why is COVID? And I'm not talking about COVID here. I'm not talking about the conspiracy or whatever you want to call it. But COVID, whenever you see that written down, generally speaking, in my knowledge, you are seeing it in capital letters. So we revert to what is a capital letter word. It's made up of the first letters of other words. It's an acronym.
Yeah.
That's what COVID is. They changed that specifically. Again, fooling us with our own English language, and this is what it's all about. That's how they slave.
The sneaky bastards.
This is the problem, Chris. This is the problem, man.
That is.
But I will say, if people want to look into what Carl's been studying, this is what I've done. And I mean, I'm nowhere near the level of Carl, but I understand what's going on here.
It's not a lot to learn, Chris. That's the thing, and you know it yourself. You're getting on that path where you're learning a lot, and you're interviewing a lot of guys and learning a lot of information on the outside as well.
I am, but my biggest problem is, and I will always say it, I don't know whether it's just because of years of self, I don't know, but my ability to retain information is shocking.
Sure, not a problem. But that's why again, with what I do, because I find that some people do have that same thing, like yourself. I'll go into Black's Law Dictionary, like Alex, and I'll highlight certain words what I think are important. I'll take a snapshot, cut them out, and I'll make a dictionary out of just them words that we should be knowing, and I'll post them up.
Absolutely.
And then let you go through them words and download them words, or go into the Black's Law Dictionary and take them words yourself. So you build your own library. So when you are coming up against things like the Enroll Depot, like the identification at the company's house for the passport, like the passport, like the Royal Courts of Justice, at least we've got the factual words from their own law society textbooks that they're using.
Absolutely.
And they don't want to agree with them facts, even though they've gone to university and studied for 5 years and then another 3 years to go into a barristerhood.
Yeah, 100%. Listen, I've got to wrap up because I've got somewhere to be soon. Thank you so much for both of your times. Right. First of all, Alex, where can people find you?
On Patreon, and it's Dark Acronyms, which is DARK ACRONYMS. I think it's actually Patreon Dark Acronyms 1, but if you put Patreon and Dark Acronyms in to Google, it should pull me up there.
Or you can just click on the link in the video description because it'll be a lot quicker. And to you, Cole.
And me is just Hornseywood Truth Talk. Or go onto YouTube and just type in Hornseywood, and I've got about 4 channels. I've got at HWA Truth. I've got Truth Talk. I've got Hornseywood and Hornseywood Academy. So I've got about 4 or 5 different channels with a lot of videos on as well, which are open to the public to go and watch as well. And if they're more interested, they can get involved with the Patreon, which is Hornseywood Truth Talk on Patreon.
Yep, nice one. Thank you very much, guys. That's fantastic. I will leave all the relevant links in the video description. Your logo will be on the video screen all through the production anyway, so they will certainly know how to spell it. Thank you.
Chris, thank you, Chris, because with you doing your work and building your subscribers and stuff, it helps. You are helping to get information out as well. So if there's anything we can do with you to give you more talks like this, to get more information out, if any of your listeners are typing up questions or anything else in your comments and stuff, and you want to list them and you want to bring them forward to ask them questions, that's not a problem, because we're all in this together and we need to help each other. Brilliant. So thank you. Thank you for putting
awesome. I really appreciate that, as do my listeners, I'm sure. So I don't have to look at the camera to say what I normally say. So I hope everyone who has listened to this and has made it to the end has enjoyed it and taken lots of useful information from it. Good luck with your journey. And until next time, see you all again soon. Bye for now.